The millionaire pretends to eat and listens to the surprising confession of a black beggar woman. Jack Sterling, Wall Street kingpin, worth billions, was a prisoner. Not in jail, but worse, stuck in a hospital bed at New York Presbyterian after a dicey heart surgery. They thought he was comatose. They were wrong. He heard everything, every whispered word, every greedy sigh from his family, hovering like vultures. He pretended to swallow that awful bland puree. The things he did to keep up the act. His family? They were already picking over his bones. He knew it. Then she started singing, a voice like honey drifting up from the street below. Sarah. He heard them call her that. A street performer, down on her luck, singing her heart out. He could feel the music, even trapped in this shell. He had to see her. With all his might, he flickered an eyelid. Once, twice. Maria, his nurse, bless her heart, she noticed. He could hear the clatter of her shoes as she rushed over. Bring her inside, he managed to think, willing her to understand. And then Sarah was there, singing Hallelujah, an old song, a forgotten melody. It stirred something deep inside him, something he hadn't felt in decades. Genuine emotion. He twitched a finger, just barely. Maria got the message. She brought Sarah closer. Sarah, sweet, naive Sarah, started talking. She thought he couldn't hear. About her struggles, about her dreams, about her son, Mikey, 8 years old. She was fighting for him. Suddenly, a jolt. Mikey? Her description. It matched. Years ago. A brief affair. Forgotten. Could it be? Could Mikey be his son? Then the bombshell. She confessed a secret about Mikey's paternity. A secret that could blow everything apart. The Sterling Empire, lies upon lies, going back decades. His head swam. He had to warn her. Then he walked in. Roger, his brother. Slick, ruthless, impatient. He waved Sarah away like a fly. End-of-life care, Roger hissed at Maria. His eyes, cold and calculating, landed on Jack. A glint of something sinister. He leaned in close, his voice a low, poisonous whisper. Any day now, old man. Any day now. Roger left. Jack was alone, drowning in Sarah's secret, the possibility of a son, the threat from his own brother. He tried to move, to signal Maria, but she was gone. Sarah's guitar floated up from the street. A haunting reminder of a life he could have had. A son he might still save. What now? Antes de continuarmos con essa história incrível, preciso te fazer alerta importante. Muitos inscritos têm relatado que o YouTube removeu suas inscrições sem aviso. Dá só uma conferida rápida no botão vermelho aí embaixo para garantir que você ainda está inscrito no canal. Não quero que você perca nenhum conteúdo exclusivo que vem por aí. E já que você está aí, deixa aquele like poderoso que me ajuda muito com o algoritmo. E me conta nos comentários de qual cidade você está assistindo. Adoro conhecer cada pessoa incrível que faz parte dessa comunidade. Sua participação faz toda a diferença. Vamos interagir. Roger left. Jack was alone, drowning. Sarah's secret. Mikey, his brother. What now? Suddenly the machine started beeping. Louder, faster. A flat line. The monitor screamed. His head was pounding. He couldn't breathe. He squeezed his eyes shut, willing his heart to beat, to live. For Mikey, for Sarah. Then a voice. A woman's voice. Clear, calm, familiar. "Jack? Can you hear me, Jack?" It couldn't be. He forced his eyes open, and there she was, Eleanor, his ex-wife, standing over him, holding a syringe. Eleanor, who he hadn't seen in 15 years. Eleanor, who he thought hated him. What? He managed to think, the question, a silent scream in his head. She smiled. A sad, almost loving smile. "Time to wake up, darling. It's been a long nap." She plunged the syringe into his IV. He felt a jolt. A wave of energy surged through him. His senses sharpened. He could move. He could feel. "Eleanor, why?" he thought, trying to speak, but his voice was still locked inside. "Roger," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "He's been skimming from the company for years, millions. He framed me. That's why we divorced, Jack. He made it look like I was the one stealing." His blood ran cold. Roger, his own brother, betraying him like that? "He found out I knew," Eleanor continued, her eyes welling up. "He knew I was going to tell you. He hired someone to take care of me. I had to disappear. I've been watching you, Jack, waiting for the right moment." She leaned closer. "And Sarah, Mikey, Roger knows. He's planning something. He wants them gone." Gone? He couldn't let that happen. Not to his son. Not to Sarah. "But there's more, Jack," Eleanor said, her voice trembling. "Mikey, he's not just your son. He's also Roger's." The room spun. The machines blurred. "Roger? Mikey? How could that be?" "Years ago," Eleanor whispered, "before we were married, I had a brief affair with Roger. I didn't know I was pregnant. When Mikey was born, I assumed he was yours. But I did a DNA test, years later, in secret. I had to know. I never told you. I was ashamed." Ashamed? He was beyond shock. He was numb. His head was exploding with the revelation. Eleanor reached for his hand. Her touch was warm, reassuring. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I should have told you, but I was afraid of losing you." And now, suddenly, the door burst open. Roger stood there, a gun in his hand. His face was a mask of rage. "Eleanor," he snarled, "I should have known you'd be here, always meddling." He pointed the gun at Eleanor. "Time to finish what I started." Jack tried to move, to stop him, but his body was still weak. Paralyzed. He could only watch in horror as Roger raised the gun. Then a shot rang out. But it wasn't Roger who fired. Eleanor stood there, a small pistol in her hand. Smoke curling from the barrel. Roger crumpled to the floor, dead. She looked at Jack, her eyes filled with tears. "I had to, Jack. He would have killed us all." The monitors went crazy again. This time, it was Eleanor's heart rate. She clutched her chest, gasping for air. "The syringe," she croaked. "It was poisoned. Roger knew I'd be here. He set me up." She collapsed onto the floor next to Roger's lifeless body. Jack was alone again. 2 dead bodies. A shocking revelation. A son who was also his brother's, and a brother who tried to kill him. What in God's name was going on? Jack was alone again. 2 dead bodies, a shocking revelation. A son who was also his brother's, and a brother who tried to kill him. What in God's name was going on? Suddenly, the room started to dim. Not like a power outage, but different. Like the world itself was fading. He could barely make out the shapes of the bodies on the floor. What the heck was happening? And then he heard it. A whisper, not in his ears, but in his head. Jack, Jack. He tried to move, to scream, but he was still trapped, paralyzed. The voice grew louder, clearer. You're not really here, Jack. What? Not really here? Where was he then? The darkness intensified. He closed his eyes, squeezing them shut, trying to fight whatever was happening. But it was no use. The voice was overwhelming. This isn't your life, Jack. It's a story. A story? What kind of crazy talk was that? Jack Sterling, Wall Street Titan, was the protagonist in some kind of fiction? You made a deal, Jack, a long time ago. A deal for success, for power. But the price. He remembered then, vaguely, a meeting, shrouded in shadows. A promise, whispered in the dark. He'd wanted it all, damn it. He'd been so ambitious, so hungry. He'd signed something. He couldn't quite recall the details, but the feeling, the chilling certainty that he'd made a terrible mistake, it all came flooding back. The price was your life, Jack. Your real life. This was a test, a game, and you failed. No, he hadn't failed. He'd built an empire. He'd lived. Lived? You existed, Jack. You accumulated. You crushed. But you never truly lived. You forgot what it meant to be human. He thought of Sarah, of Mikey, the flicker of genuine emotion he'd felt. Was that the point? To remember? Too late, Jack. The game is over. Suddenly, the darkness vanished. He was standing somewhere else. A bright, sterile room. Doctors, nurses. They were all staring at him. With pity, with concern. He's awake, someone shouted. A doctor rushed forward. Mr. Sterling, can you hear me? Can you understand me? He could. He could move. He could speak. What happened? He croaked. The doctor sighed. You've been in a coma, Mr. Sterling, for 5 years. 5 years? The heart surgery, Roger, Eleanor, Sarah, Mikey, all of it, gone? The surgery was successful, the doctor continued, but you suffered a severe stroke. We didn't think you'd ever wake up. He looked around the room, his mind reeling. 5 years, lost. Was any of it real? Had he imagined it all? The betrayal, the revelation, the potential for redemption. Was it just a cruel, elaborate dream? Then he saw her, standing in the doorway. A young woman, holding a small boy by the hand. The woman, she looked familiar. So familiar. Sarah. Older, wearier, but it was her. And the boy? Mikey. He had Roger's eyes. He stared at them, his heart pounding. This couldn't be a coincidence. Sarah saw him, her eyes widening in shock. She hesitated, then slowly walked towards him, Mikey clinging to her leg. Mr. Sterling, she said softly, do you remember me? He nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. He remembered. He remembered everything. Mikey. she said, gently pushing the boy forward. Say hello to Mr. Sterling. Mikey looked up at him, his eyes filled with a strange mix of curiosity and something else. Recognition? Hello, Mikey said shyly, and then the bombshell. Sarah leaned in close, her voice barely a whisper. He knows, Mr. Sterling, she said, her eyes filled with fear. He knows everything, and he's coming for us. Who? Who was coming for them? And how did they know? He was awake. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. He knows, Mr. Sterling, she said, her eyes filled with fear. He knows everything, and he's coming for us. Who? Who was coming for them? And how did they know? He was awake. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. My head was spinning. 5 years gone. Was this real? Sarah, Mikey, they looked real, felt real. But he was coming? Who the heck was he? Sarah, who is he? I managed to croak out. My voice was rusty, weak. She flinched, looked around nervously. I can't say here. They're always watching. She grabbed Mikey's hand tighter. We have to go. Go where? I was stuck in a hospital bed. But the fear in her eyes, it was enough. Wait, I said, trying to sit up. Pain shot through my chest. Tell me something, anything, about what happened after. She hesitated again, then leaned in so close I could smell the cheap perfume she was wearing. After Roger died, things got worse. Much worse. His associates, they wanted their money. The money he stole. They thought I knew where it was hidden. And you didn't? She shook her head, her eyes wide. No, I swear, I barely knew Roger. Mikey. Mikey stared at me blank-faced. This kid, my son, Roger's son, he was in danger. They threatened Mikey, Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. Said they'd hurt him if I didn't cooperate. I had to run, changed my name, moved all the time. Run. That was all she'd done for 5 years. Run. And this, I asked, my heart pounding. She took a deep breath. His name is Jonathan Hayes. He was Roger's right-hand man, the one who really ran things. He's smart, ruthless. He knows everything, about everyone. Jonathan Hayes. The name meant nothing to me, but the way Sarah said it, it was clear this guy was bad news. Real bad news. Suddenly, a nurse rushed in. Mr. Sterling, you shouldn't be talking so much. And who are these people? Sarah recoiled, pulling Mike at me, her eyes filled with a strange mixture of hope and desperation. There's one more thing, she said. About Mikey. I braced myself. What now? He's not just Roger's son, she said, her voice barely a whisper. He's also yours. Wait, what? I know, it doesn't make sense, she continued, seeing the confusion on my face. But after Roger died, I found something. A letter from Eleanor. She wrote it years ago, before she disappeared. She said she lied about the DNA test. That Mikey, he was always mine, always yours. My head was about to explode. Eleanor? A letter? Mikey, my son, not Roger's? All this time? Before I could say anything, a voice boomed from the doorway. Well, 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 look who's awake. It was a man, tall, impeccably dressed, with cold, piercing eyes. He looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place him. Jonathan Hayes, Sarah whispered, her voice filled with terror. Hayes smiled, a chilling, predatory smile. That's right, darling. It's so nice to finally meet you, Mr. Sterling. Or should I say, Dad? Dad, what the hell was he talking about? Hayes chuckled, a low, menacing sound. Oh, didn't she tell you? Mikey isn't just your son, Mr. Sterling. He's also mine. My blood ran cold. You see, Hayes continued, stepping into the room. Eleanor had a busy life, Mr. Sterling. She liked to spread her affection around. It's really quite the family reunion, isn't it? He pulled out a gun. But reunions, as you know, are often short-lived. He raised the gun, pointing it first at Sarah, then at Mikey. Say goodbye, Daddy. And then everything went black. And then everything went black. I blinked, tried to focus. My head was throbbing. Where was I? Then I saw him. Hayes, standing over me, a smug look on his face. But the gun, it was gone. What happened? I mumbled, my voice a croak. Hayes chuckled. Oh, you wouldn't believe it, Mr. Sterling. Quite the little drama. But let's just say, things didn't go exactly as planned. He stepped aside, and I saw her. Eleanor. Alive. Standing behind Hayes, a small, satisfied smile playing on her lips. My jaw dropped. Eleanor? But you were dead. I saw you. She just shrugged. Let's just say I'm good at playing dead, Jack. Always have been. Hayes laughed again. A harsh, grating sound. You see, Mr. Sterling, Eleanor and we go way back. We have a complicated relationship. Complicated? That was an understatement. My head was spinning. What the hell was going on? But enough chit-chat, Hayes said, his eyes hardening. Let's get down to business. I need something from you, Jack. Something very valuable. What? I don't have anything, I protested, trying to sit up. Oh, I think you do, Hayes said, leaning closer. You have Mikey. Through Mikey, you have access to something I desperately need. Mikey? What did Mikey have to do with this? I looked at the kid who was standing next to Sarah, his eyes wide with fear. What are you talking about? I demanded. Hayes smirked. Mikey, my dear boy, is the key to a fortune that's been hidden away. 4 years. A fortune that belongs to me. He paused for effect, then dropped the bombshell. You see, Mr. Sterling, Roger wasn't just skimming from the company. He was building something else entirely, something much bigger. And he entrusted the key, the literal key, to Mikey. He pointed to a small silver locket around Mikey's neck. That locket, Mr. Sterling, contains a code that will unlock a hidden vault filled with millions, billions perhaps, and I intend to have it. I stared at Mikey, then back at Hayes. This couldn't be real. It was too crazy, too unbelievable. But the look on Hayes's face, it was deadly serious. He wasn't kidding. And what does Eleanor have to do with this? I asked, my voice trembling. Hayes smiled at Eleanor, and she returned. The smile, a chillingly intimate gesture. Eleanor, my dear, has been helping me all along. She knew about the vault. She knew about Mikey. She knew everything. She's been playing you, Jack. Playing you both. He pulled Eleanor close, wrapping his arm around her possessively. We make a good team, don't we, darling? Eleanor nodded, her eyes gleaming with a cold, calculating light. We always have, Jack. It's a shame you had to find out this way. My heart sank. Betrayed, again, by the one person I thought I could trust. But then, something happened. Something completely unexpected. Eleanor looked at Mikey, her face softening. A flicker of something, almost maternal, crossed her features. And then, she did the unthinkable. She pulled away from Hayes, took a step towards Mikey, and whispered something in his ear. Something that made his eyes widen in shock. Something that changed everything. "Run, Mikey," she said, her voice barely audible. "Run and don't look back. Tell them the code is sunrise." Then she turned to Hayes, her eyes filled with defiance. "He is not your key to anything, Jonathan. He is not a key at all." She spat towards his feet. Hayes's face contorted with rage. He raised his gun again, this time aiming it at Eleanor. But before he could fire, a shot rang out. This time it wasn't Eleanor. It was Sarah. She stood there, a gun in her hand, smoke curling from the barrel. Hayes crumpled to the floor, dead. Eleanor stared at Sarah, her face a mask of disbelief. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you do that?" Sarah just shrugged, her eyes filled with tears. "He was going to hurt him," she said, pointing to Mikey. "I couldn't let that happen." The room was silent. The only sound was the faint beeping of the hospital machines. And then Mikey spoke. His voice was clear, strong, and strangely familiar. "It's time to wake up, Dad." "Dad? But I was his dad, wasn't I?" Mikey smiled, a knowing, almost unsettling smile. "You've been asleep for a long time, Jack, but it's time to come back. They need you." He reached out and took my hand, and then everything went black again. And then everything went black again. I gasped, lungs burning. The sterile smell of the hospital filled my nostrils. But something was different, terribly different. The fluorescent lights flickered with an unnatural intensity. The walls seemed to pulse, and the silence, it wasn't the quiet of a hospital room. It was a heavy, suffocating silence, like being buried alive. I tried to sit up, but my body wouldn't respond. Panic clawed at my throat. I was paralyzed again. Then I saw them, standing around my bed. Sarah, Mikey, Eleanor. But they weren't looking at me. They were staring through me. Their eyes were vacant, lifeless, like puppets with their strings cut. "Sarah?" I croaked, my voice a raspy whisper. "Eleanor, Mikey, what's going on?" No response. They just stood there, blankly. Suddenly, the room shifted. The walls dissolved. The hospital bed vanished. I was standing somewhere else. A vast, empty plain stretched out before me. Under a sky the color of bruised plums. The air was thick with the stench of decay. And then I saw him, standing in the distance, a figure cloaked in shadows. He raised a hand, and the figures of Sarah, Mikey, and Eleanor turned towards him, their movements jerky and unnatural. Like wind-up toys, he started walking towards me, slowly, deliberately. With each step, the temperature plummeted. I could feel the ice creeping into my bones. As he got closer, I could make out his face. It was Jonathan Hayes, but not the Hayes I'd seen in the hospital room. This Hayes was older, gaunter, his eyes burning with an unholy light. "Hello, Jack," he said, his voice a dry, rasping whisper that seemed to scrape against my very soul. "Did you really think it was over?" I stumbled backward, fear gripping me in its icy claws. "What is this? Where am I?" Hayes chuckled. a sound that sent shivers down my spine. This, Jack, is the real world. The world behind the illusion. The world where deals are made and debts are collected. He stopped a few feet away from me, his eyes boring into mine. You made a deal, Jack, a long time ago. A deal for success, for power, and you forgot the price. I remembered then. The meeting in the shadows, the whispered promise, the chilling certainty that I'd made a terrible mistake. You think that life you lived was real? Hayes sneered. The Wall Street empire, the family drama, the sudden awakening? It was all a game, Jack. A test. And you failed. He gestured towards Sarah, Mikey, and Eleanor, who were now standing behind him, their eyes still vacant. These are just constructs, characters in your play. They mean nothing. No, I shouted, my voice cracking with desperation. They're real. I felt something for them. Hayes laughed, a hollow, mocking sound. Sentimentality, Jack? How pathetic. You were supposed to be ruthless, unfeeling, a true predator. He stepped closer, his breath reeking of sulfur. But you faltered. You allowed yourself to feel, and that, Jack, is your undoing. He raised his hand again, and Sarah, Mikey, and Eleanor began to advance towards me, their movements becoming more erratic, more menacing. It's time to pay the price, Jack, Hayes whispered. It's time to surrender what you owe. They were almost upon me. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing myself for the inevitable. But then, nothing. I opened my eyes. The figures were gone. Hayes was gone. I was alone again, standing in the empty plain. But something had changed. I could feel it. The air was colder, the sky darker, and the silence, it was deeper, more profound. Then, a new voice, not Hayes' rasp, but a voice so sweet, so familiar, it sent a different kind of chill down my spine. The voice of a child. "Hello, Daddy." I turned around slowly. Standing behind me, bathed in an ethereal light, was Mikey. But not the Mikey I knew. This Mikey was older, wiser, his eyes filled with an ancient knowledge. "Mikey?" I whispered, my voice trembling. What are you?" He smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "I am what you made me, Daddy," he said softly. "I am the price you have to pay, and I'm here to collect." Then his eyes burned with a horrifying heat. "And I have the key you seek, the one you need to finish your work and set us all free." Before he could continue, there was a searing heat, and my consciousness was torn apart. A vision, an insight, a key. I could feel myself falling to the darkest places again, and knew, deep down, what it was going to take. "I will do it," I screamed, knowing I was alone. The world had gone silent, but my words were heard, and everything went blacker than black, and everything went blacker than black. Then light, blinding, searing light. I gasped, felt my lungs working for the first time in who knows how long. The hospital room was gone. The plane, the figures, Hayes, all gone. I was standing on solid ground, but the ground was wrong. It shimmered like heat rising off asphalt. And the sky, it wasn't a sky. It was a swirling vortex of colors I'd never seen. Colors that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Then I heard it. A sound. Faint at first, then louder, clearer. A melody. A haunting melody played on a guitar. I turned, and there she was, Sarah. But this wasn't the Sarah from the hospital, or the Sarah from Hayes's Twisted Game. This Sarah was different. She glowed almost. Her eyes shone with a light that rivaled the swirling vortex above. She was playing an old, beat-up acoustic guitar, her fingers moving effortlessly across the strings. Where am I? I managed to croak out. She smiled, a sad, knowing smile. You're where you need to be, Jack. But what about Hayes? What about Mikey? Eleanor? Her smile faded. They were never real, Jack. Not in the way you thought. They were projections. Reflections of your own desires, your own fears. Projections? But I felt them. I loved them. She nodded. You felt what you were meant to feel. But it wasn't real love, Jack. It was a longing for something real. Something you lost a long time ago. Lost? What did I lose? She stopped playing, and the silence that followed was deafening. She looked at me, her eyes filled with pity. You lost yourself, Jack. You sold your soul for success, for power. And in doing so, you forgot what it meant to be human. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I knew she was right. I had become a monster, a cold, calculating machine. But what now? What do I do? She raised her guitar and began to play again. The melody was different this time, softer, more hopeful. You have a choice, Jack. You can continue down the path you've been on, a path of greed and destruction. Or you can choose a different path, a path of redemption, a path of love. But how? I don't know how. She stopped playing again. You do, Jack. You just have to remember. Remember what it felt like to be human, to be kind, to be compassionate. She reached out and took my hand. Her touch was warm, comforting. It won't be easy, Jack. The forces that brought you here are powerful. They won't give you up without a fight. Suddenly, the ground began to shake. The swirling vortex above grew darker, more menacing. A figure emerged from the shadows, a figure I knew all too well. Jonathan Hayes. But this Hayes was even more terrifying than before. His eyes burned with a hatred, so intense it felt like it could consume the entire world. You can't escape your fate, Jack, he snarled. You belong to us. He raised his hand, and the ground beneath my feet began to crumble. I could feel myself being pulled downward into the darkness. Sarah squeezed my hand tighter. Don't give up, Jack. Remember. But what was there to remember? I was a monster, a failure. Then, a memory. A fleeting image. A small boy sitting on my lap, laughing. Mikey. But not the Mikey from the hospital. This Mikey was younger, innocent, pure. And then I knew. I knew what I had to do. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and focused all my energy on that image, on that memory, on that feeling. And then I let go. I surrendered myself to the darkness. But as I fell, I heard a voice, but different voice this time. A voice that resonated deep within my soul. It's not over yet, Jack. You have one more chance. And then, nothing. E então, nada. Eu abri os olhos, eu estava de volta, no maldito quarto de hospital. As máquinas apitando, o cheiro de desinfetante, tudo igual, mas não igual. Era como se eu soubesse de algo que os outros não sabiam. Como se eu tivesse visto o outro lado da cortina. Sarah estava ali, dormindo numa cadeira ao lado da cama. O rosto cansado, marcado pelas preocupações. Mikey estava no colo dela, também dormindo. Um anjo. Meu anjo? Filho do Roger? Filho do Reis? Meu, a verdade? Dane-se a verdade. Era um garoto. Precisava de mim. Eu tentei me mexer. As máquinas apitaram mais forte. Sarah acordou num pulo. Jack? Ela sussurrou, os olhos arregalados. Você tá acordado? Eu tentei sorrir. Um sorriso fraco, mas sincero. Estou. Acho que estou. Ela apertou a campainha. Enfermeiras correram para o quarto. Médicos. Um caos. Mas eu só conseguia olhar para Sarah e para Mike. Eu preciso te contar uma coisa, eu disse a voz rouca. Sarah se aproximou. Tensa. O quê? O que foi? Mike, ele. Eu respirei fundo. Ele precisa saber. De repente a porta se abriu, e quem entrou congelou o meu sangue. Era a Eleanor. Mas não a Eleanor que eu tinha visto naquele mundo estranho. Não a Eleanor manipuladora e calculista. Era a verdadeira Eleanor. Minha Eleanor, mais velha, com rugas ao redor dos olhos. Mas ela, e atrás dela, vinha Roger. Vivo. Eleanor disse a voz embargada. Meu Deus, você acordou? Roger se aproximou, um sorriso largo no rosto. Bem-vindo de volta, irmão. Estávamos todos tão preocupados. Eu não conseguia falar. Não conseguia me mexer. O que estava acontecendo? Como isso é possível? Eu finalmente consegui perguntar. Eleanor segurou a minha mão. O que você quer dizer, querido? Roger, ele estava morto. Eu vi. Roger, Ryu. Morto? Que bobagem, Jack. Eu estou aqui, perfeitamente vivo. Eu olhei para Sarah. Ela estava tão confusa quanto eu. Mikey apertava a mão dela com força. Você não está entendendo, eu disse, a voz tremendo. Ele tentou me matar. Ele tinha um caso com a Eleanor. De repente, minha cabeça começou a doer. Uma dor lancinante, como se o meu cérebro estivesse fritando. As imagens começaram a girar. Reis, aquele mundo estranho. A conversa com Mikey. Tudo sumiu. Eu pisquei. A dor passou. Eu olhei para Eleanor, para Roger, para Sarah, para Mikey. E então eu entendi. Vocês não sabem de nada, não é? Eu sussurrei. Eleanor franziu a testa. Saber de quê, Jack? Eu ri. Uma risada amarga, sem humor. De nada. Esqueçam. Eu só tive um sonho. Ruim. Um sonho ruim? Não. Era mais que isso. Era uma memória. Uma lembrança de algo que nunca aconteceu. Ou talvez de algo que poderia acontecer. Mas a verdade era, eles não sabiam de nada. Nem Roger, nem Eleanor, nem Sarah. E então, uma coisa ainda mais assustadora me ocorreu. Eu era o único que se lembrava da verdade. Mas ao mesmo tempo, eu era o único que estava completamente louco. Eu preciso descansar, eu disse. Por favor, me deixem sozinho. Eles saíram do quarto, me deixando sozinho com meus pensamentos. E com o medo. O que estava acontecendo? Quem era Jonathan Hayes? E por que eu era o único que se lembrava de tudo? E o mais importante, por que, mesmo com Roger vivo e sorrindo, eu ainda sentia que a ameaça não tinha desaparecido? Por que eu ainda sentia que alguém, ele, estava vindo atrás de nós? Eu precisava descansar. Por favor, me deixem sozinho. Eles saíram do quarto, me deixando sozinho com meus pensamentos. E com o medo. O que estava acontecendo? Quem era Jonathan Hayes? E por que eu era o único que se lembrava de tudo? E o mais importante, porque mesmo com Roger vivo e sorrindo, eu ainda sentia que a ameaça não tinha desaparecido. Porque eu ainda sentia que alguém, ele, estava vindo atrás de nós? O sono veio como uma onda. Um alívio. Mas um alívio breve. Logo os sonhos voltaram. As imagens de Hayes, as cores bizarras daquele lugar. E o Mikey. Aquele Mikey. Aquilo me assustava mais que qualquer coisa. Acordei sobressaltado. O sol da manhã entrava pela janela. Aquele clarão quase me cegou. Precisava fazer alguma coisa. Mas o quê? Como lutar contra algo que talvez só existisse na minha cabeça? Me levantei da cama, meio tonto, as pernas bambas. Fui até o banheiro. Me olhei no espelho. Quem era aquele cara? Um bilionário? Um louco? Um pai? Lavei o rosto. A água gelada ajudou a despertar um pouco. Precisava falar com alguém. Precisava de respostas. Saí do quarto. As enfermeiras me olharam com cautela, como se eu fosse uma bomba prestes a explodir. Fui até a sala de espera. Lá estavam eles, Eleanor e Roger, conversando animadamente. Sarah, sentada um pouco afastada, segurando a mão de Mikey. Respirei fundo. Era agora. Eleanor, eu disse. Roger, podemos conversar? Eles me olharam surpresos. Claro, Jack, Eleanor respondeu. Que foi? A sós, eu completei. Roger franziu a testa. Tem alguma coisa que não podemos ouvir, Sarah? Eu ignorei a pergunta dele. Preciso falar com vocês dois, agora. Eles se entreolharam desconfiados, mas concordaram. Fomos até um canto mais reservado da sala. O que está acontecendo, Jack? Eleanor perguntou. Você está estranho. Eu sei de coisas, eu respondi. Coisas que vocês não sabem. Roger riu. Ah, é? Tipo o quê? Jonathan Hayes, eu disse simplesmente. O sorriso de Roger desapareceu. O rosto de Eleanor empalideceu. Quem? Quem te falou dele? Roger gaguejou. Não importa, eu respondi. O que importa é que eu sei quem ele é e o que ele quer. Você está delirando, Jack. Eleanor disse, a voz tremendo. Você precisa descansar. Não estou delirando, eu retruquei. Eu sei sobre o dinheiro, sobre o cofre, sobre tudo. O silêncio se instalou. Um silêncio pesado, sufocante. De repente, Roger sacou uma arma. Apontou para mim. Como você sabe disso? Ele rosnou. Eu te disse, eu respondi, mantendo a calma. Não importa. O que importa é que eu não vou deixar você pegar esse dinheiro. Você não tem escolha, Jack. Roger disse. Ou você me conta tudo o que sabe, ou... Antes que ele pudesse terminar a frase, Eleanor gritou. Roger, não! Não faça isso! Roger hesitou. Olhou para Eleanor, confuso. Eleanor, o quê? E então, Eleanor fez algo que ninguém esperava. Ela tirou uma arma da bolsa dela e apontou para Roger. Eu não vou deixar você machucá-lo, ela disse, a voz firme. Roger a encarou, boquiaberto. Eleanor, o que você está fazendo? Eu estou protegendo o Jack. Ela respondeu. Ele é a única pessoa que realmente se importou comigo. Mas eu amo você, Eleanor, Roger implorou. Você ama o dinheiro, Roger, ela retrucou. Não a mim. De repente, uma sirene tocou. A polícia estava chegando. Alguém tinha chamado. Roger entrou em pânico, olhou para os lados, desesperado. Eu vou matar vocês dois, ele gritou. E então ele atirou. Mas não acertou nem a mim, nem a Eleanor. Acertou Sarah. Sarah caiu no chão, gritando de dor. Mikey começou a chorar, e naquele momento tudo mudou. Eu senti uma raiva tomar conta de mim. Uma raiva que eu nunca tinha sentido antes. Uma raiva que me consumia por dentro. Eu me joguei em cima de Roger, tomei a arma dele e atirei, várias vezes, até ele cair no chão sem vida. O silêncio voltou a reinar, mas era um silêncio diferente. Um silêncio carregado de culpa, de dor, de arrependimento. Eu olhei para Eleanor. Ela estava em choque, os olhos marejados. Eu não queria fazer isso, eu disse, a voz embargada. Eleanor balançou a cabeça. Eu sei, Jack, eu sei. Então me virei para Sarah, que estava sendo atendida por enfermeiras. Mike a abraçava, chorando. E foi aí que eu percebi a verdade. A verdade cruel e inevitável. A culpa era minha. Tudo isso era culpa minha. Se eu não tivesse feito aquele maldito acordo, se eu não tivesse buscado o poder e a riqueza, nada disso teria acontecido. Sarah estaria bem. Roger estaria vivo. E eu não seria um assassino. Mas era tarde demais. O sangue já estava derramado. E a minha vida estava arruinada para sempre. Então, um homem de jaleco branco aproximou-se de mim e disse: Senhor Jack Sterling, preciso que me acompanhe, temos algo importante para lhe mostrar. O quê? O que significa isso? Eu estava confuso, ainda processando toda a loucura que tinha acontecido. Apenas venha comigo, por favor. É sobre Mikey. Essa frase me atingiu como um choque. Mikey? O que aconteceu com ele? Sem responder, o médico fez um sinal para que eu o seguisse. Fui levado por corredores longos e frios, até chegarmos a uma sala que parecia um laboratório. Vários equipamentos estranhos e luzes piscando preenchiam o ambiente. No centro da sala, vi Mikey deitado em uma maca, com vários fios conectados ao seu corpo. Ele parecia pálido e frágil. Sarah estava ao seu lado, segurando sua mão, com os olhos vermelhos e inchados de tanto chorar. O que está acontecendo? Por que ele está assim? Perguntei desesperado. O médico suspirou antes de responder. Senhor Sterling, precisamos lhe mostrar algo que encontramos no cérebro de Mikey. Algo que não conseguimos explicar. Ele fez um sinal para um técnico, que apertou alguns botões em um computador. Uma imagem apareceu na tela. Era uma ressonância magnética do cérebro de Mikey. Veja, senhor Sterling, o médico disse, apontando para uma área específica da imagem. Esta região aqui normalmente não deveria existir. É como se fosse um implante, uma estrutura complexa que não se parece com nada que já vimos antes. Eu olhei para a imagem, incrédulo. Um implante? O que isso significa? Não sabemos ao certo, o médico respondeu. Mas acreditamos que seja a fonte das habilidades incomuns de Mikey. A forma como ele parece saber coisas que não deveria, como se estivesse conectado a algo maior. Nesse momento, Eleanor entrou na sala, com um olhar sombrio no rosto. Eu sei o que é isso, ela disse, com a voz carregada de mistério. É uma tecnologia antiga, perigosa, capaz de alterar a realidade. Eu a encarei, confuso. Do que você está falando, Eleanor? Ela respirou fundo e começou a explicar. Há muitos anos, meu pai estava envolvido em um projeto secreto do governo. Eles estavam pesquisando formas de controlar a mente humana, de criar soldados perfeitos. Mas o projeto foi desativado quando perceberam que era muito perigoso, que poderia ter consequências catastróficas. Você está dizendo que Mike é um experimento? Perguntei. Horrorizado. Não exatamente, Eleanor respondeu. mas acredito que ele seja descendente de alguém que foi usado nesses experimentos, que ele tenha herdado essa tecnologia de alguma forma. De repente, Mikey abriu os olhos. Ele olhou para mim com um sorriso estranho no rosto. Finalmente você acordou, pai, ele disse, com uma voz que não era dele. Estava demorando. Eu recuei assustado. Quem é você? Onde está o Mikey? Eu sou Mikey, ele respondeu. Eu sou muito mais do que você imagina. Ele fechou os olhos novamente. E então, algo inacreditável aconteceu. O laboratório inteiro começou a tremer. As luzes piscaram, os equipamentos emitiram ruídos estranhos. E de repente, tudo desapareceu. Eu estava de volta ao quarto de hospital. Sarah dormia na cadeira. Não havia sinal de Mikey, nem de Eleanor, nem de Roger. Tudo tinha voltado ao normal. Ou quase. Porque agora eu sabia a verdade. E a verdade era muito mais assustadora do que qualquer pesadelo que eu jamais pudesse ter imaginado. O homem de jaleco branco se aproximou. Senhor Jack Sterling, preciso que me acompanhe. Temos algo importante para lhe mostrar. O quê? O que significa isso? Eu estava confuso, ainda processando toda a loucura que tinha acontecido. Apenas venha comigo, por favor. É sobre Mikey. Essa frase me atingiu como um choque. Mikey? O que aconteceu com ele? Sem responder, o médico fez um sinal para que eu o seguisse. Fui levado por corredores longos e frios até chegarmos a uma sala que parecia um laboratório. Vários equipamentos estranhos e luzes piscando preenchiam o ambiente. No centro da sala, vi Mikey, deitado em uma maca, com vários fios conectados ao seu corpo. Ele parecia pálido e frágil. Sarah estava ao seu lado, segurando sua mão, com os olhos vermelhos e inchados de tanto chorar. O que está acontecendo? Por que ele está assim? Perguntei desesperado. O médico suspirou antes de responder. Senhor Sterling, precisamos lhe mostrar algo que encontramos no cérebro de Mikey. Algo que não conseguimos explicar. Ele fez um sinal para um técnico, que apertou alguns botões em um computador. Uma imagem apareceu na tela. Era uma ressonância magnética do cérebro de Mikey. Veja, Sr. Sterling, o médico disse, apontando para uma área específica da imagem. Esta região aqui normalmente não deveria existir. É como se fosse um implante, uma estrutura complexa que não se parece com nada que já vimos antes. Eu olhei para a imagem, incrédulo. Um implante? O que isso significa? Não sabemos ao certo, o médico respondeu. Mas acreditamos que seja a fonte das habilidades incomuns de Mikey. A forma como ele parece saber coisas que não deveria, como se estivesse conectado a algo maior. Nesse momento, Eleanor entrou na sala com um olhar sombrio no rosto. Eu sei o que é isso, ela disse, com a voz carregada de mistério. É uma tecnologia antiga, perigosa, capaz de alterar a realidade. Eu a encarei, confuso. Do que você está falando, Eleanor? Ela respirou fundo e começou a explicar. Há muitos anos, meu pai estava envolvido em um projeto secreto do governo. Eles estavam pesquisando formas de controlar a mente humana, de criar soldados perfeitos. Mas o projeto foi desativado quando perceberam que era muito perigoso, que poderia ter consequências catastróficas. Você está dizendo que Mikey é um experimento? Perguntei, horrorizado. Não exatamente, Eleanor respondeu. Mas acredito que ele seja descendente de alguém que foi usado nesses experimentos. Que ele tenha herdado essa tecnologia de alguma forma. De repente, Mikey abriu os olhos. Ele olhou para mim com um sorriso estranho no rosto. Finalmente você acordou, pai, ele disse, com uma voz que não era a dele. Estava demorando. Eu recuei assustado. Quem é você? Onde está o Mikey? Eu sou Mikey, ele respondeu, e sou muito mais do que você imagina. Ele fechou os olhos novamente. E então, algo inacreditável aconteceu. O laboratório inteiro começou a tremer. As luzes piscaram, os equipamentos emitiram ruídos estranhos. E, de repente, tudo desapareceu. Eu estava de volta ao quarto de hospital. Sarah dormia na cadeira. Não havia sinal de Mikey, nem de Eleanor, nem de Roger. Tudo tinha voltado ao normal. Ou quase. Porque agora eu sabia a verdade. E a verdade era muito mais assustadora do que qualquer pesadelo que eu jamais pudesse ter imaginado. Mas a cena não acabou por aí. Quando tentei tocar a campainha, ela caiu da minha mão, como se não houvesse nada além do toque fantasmagórico de dois ímãs se repelindo. Tentei me levantar da cama, mas ao tocar o chão, meus pés afundaram como se eu fosse areia movediça, e nesse instante, um raio de luz branco intenso invadiu o quarto e pude ver a silhueta de uma mulher com asas gigantescas e uma espada flamejante em suas mãos. Ela falou, em um tom sereno e alto: "Não tema, você foi escolhido para uma missão de extrema importância, pois é o único que se lembra dos eventos que ocorreram. Deve proteger o garoto a qualquer custo, pois o futuro da humanidade depende dele." Eu não conseguia pronunciar nenhuma palavra. Minha mente estava confusa. "Quem é você?" consegui perguntar. "Eu sou o anjo da guarda de Mikey e preciso que você o proteja, pois ele está destinado a grandes coisas. Mas há forças obscuras que desejam impedi-lo de cumprir seu propósito." Ajoelhei-me e me coloquei à disposição do anjo. "Eu farei o que for preciso para proteger o garoto", afirmei. O anjo sorriu e tocou-me a testa com a ponta de sua espada. E nesse instante me vieram visões de um futuro sombrio e caótico. Mas também vi a esperança renascer no sorriso de Mikey. A visão desapareceu e o anjo sumiu em meio ao raio de luz. Levantei-me da cama decidido. Precisava encontrar Sarah e Mikey. Precisava protegê-los das forças do mal que os perseguiam. E para minha surpresa, ao olhar para o lado, vi no espelho um reflexo diferente. Não era o meu, era o de um guerreiro, forte e determinado. Olhei para minhas mãos e, assustado, notei que elas já não eram as mesmas. Agora estavam calejadas, fortes, prontas para a batalha. Tudo havia mudado. O jaleco branco, aquilo era real ou mais uma alucinação? Precisava focar. Mikey, proteger o garoto. O médico me guiou por um corredor. Virei à direita, depois à esquerda. Um quarto, pequeno, uma janela com vista para a cidade. E ali, Sarah, sentada numa cadeira, olhando para o berço. Mikey. Respirei fundo e entrei. Sarah se assustou, virou, alívio nos olhos. "Jack, você está bem?" Aproximei. Olhei para Mikey, dormindo, tão vulnerável. "Eu sei a verdade", eu disse, "sobre o implante, sobre o que ele é." Sarah engasgou, medo puro. Como você sabe?" "Não importa. O que importa é que precisamos protegê-lo. De todos." Ela concordou. "Mas como? De quem estamos protegendo?" "Reis, ele não era o fim. Ele era só uma peça. Tem algo maior. Algo que quer o Mikey, por causa do que ele é capaz de fazer." Um barulho. Na porta. Virei. O médico. Mas diferente. Olhos frios, sem vida. "Sinto muito, Sr. Sterling", ele disse, "mas isso não pode acontecer." Sacou uma arma. Eu não vou deixar você machucar o Mikey. Sarah gritou, se colocando na frente do berço. Aproximei. Rápido. Arrancou a arma da mão dele. Um soco. O médico caiu, inconsciente. Precisamos ir, eu disse. Agora. Sarah pegou Mike no colo. Saímos do quarto, correndo, pelos corredores, sem saber para onde ir. Eles estavam em todo lugar. Médicos, enfermeiras. Todos com o mesmo olhar vazio, controlados. Precisávamos sair do hospital. Mas como? De repente, uma voz, na minha cabeça. Jack, por aqui. Olhei para os lados. Ninguém. Confia em mim. Eu sei o caminho. Era Mike. Ele estava falando comigo? Segui a voz. Corredores tortuosos. Escadas de emergência. Até finalmente chegarmos ao telhado. Um helicóptero. Esperando. Quem? Quem está pilotando isso? Sarah perguntou, incrédula. A porta do helicóptero abriu. Eleanor. Entrem, rápido. Entramos. O helicóptero decolou. Deixamos o hospital. Para trás. E com ele, a loucura. Olhei para Mikey, dormindo, seguro, por enquanto. Para onde vamos? Perguntei para Eleanor. Ela sorriu. Para um lugar seguro. Um lugar onde eles não podem nos encontrar. Olhei para a frente, para o horizonte, para o futuro. Um futuro incerto, mas com esperança. Apertei o Mike contra mim com força. Prometi a mim mesmo, a ele. Eu o protegeria, custe o que custasse. Mas, e aquela voz? Quem era? O que ela queria? E mais importante, o que Mike era capaz de fazer? A história estava longe de acabar. Você precisa se inscrever agora. Não perca as próximas histórias exclusivas que vão revolucionar sua mente. Esmague o botão de like agora. Mostre seu apoio e ajude a alimentar o algoritmo para que mais pessoas descubram esse final. Inacreditável! Inunde a seção de comentários com suas reações, teorias e previsões sobre o que vai acontecer com Jack e Mikey. Queremos saber o que você pensa. Não espere nem mais um segundo para compartilhar este vídeo com pelo menos 5 amigos que precisam conhecer este desfecho. Eles vão te agradecer para sempre. Apenas os verdadeiros fãs compreendem a importância de apoiar o canal com estas ações. Demonstre sua lealdade. O que Mike fará? O que virá a seguir? Só você pode descobrir. Ajude-nos a fazer com que o canal aumente sua audiência e assim nos motive a criar mais histórias emocionantes para vocês. Se você gostou dessa história e quer saber mais sobre os mistérios do mundo sobrenatural, inscreva-se e ative o sininho de notificação, para que não perca nenhum conteúdo exclusivo.